Howdy folks, it's Shelby here. I want to talk to you about one of my favorite things in the whole world, and that is music. I was challenged by Miss Amanda McCabe to post 10 albums that have influenced my life on Facebook. I couldn't pick just 10, and I couldn't not talk about them. So, here are some albums that Shelby loves.
Man, I feel like a woman.
Album number 1 is Come On Over by the great Shania Twain. This is the first CD I ever owned, and my family also had to listen to a lot of Shania Twain growing up, sung by yours truly. I had one of those little Walkmans, pop my earphones on, and just sing my heart out to the detriment of my family. But man, I was feeling like a woman, and I wanted to sing about it. Album number 2, American Idiot by Green Day. So in the year 2004, I was struggling with that tricky process of growing up and all the baloney that comes with it. And I heard on the radio, Boulevard of Broken Dreams, and I was like, oh, someone gets it? This man gets it? Turns out, I was not the only one who felt like I was walking alone. Elementary school, really sucked, and hearing Billie Joe Armstrong put my pain into words just really somehow made that pain less shitty. Still one of my favorite albums of the entire world of albums, and I even named my cat Saint Jimmy! He's a little punk. It's very fitting.
Only I've known of the right words. I could have held on to your arm.
Album 3, Disintegration by The Cure. The first time I saw them live, my friend and I almost got kidnapped. We were 14 years old. We were there with her parents, so we were not all alone. Prior to the concert beginning, so it was like arena, wraparound thing that sold popcorn and t-shirts. So we're moseying about that, looking at all the stuff. A man walks up to us. He comes up to me and my pal and says, "Do you guys know the time?" He pulls up his sleeve and reveals an entire arm of watches. And he says, "Well, I do." We're like, oh, that's cool, but what the fuck, right? We continue on our merry way, and it wasn't long before my friend whispers to me, he's following us. I made the mistake of looking behind me, and I made eye contact with him. And you may think, oh, what if this man just happens to be walking the same way? After all, in a little circular thing, there's only 2 ways you can go. But when I made eye contact with that motherfucker, it was like he'd been caught. His eyes lit up. It was definitely a predator has been caught chasing his prey. And he starts booking it towards us. She and I take off running, no discussion needed. We were both like, oh, fuck. This man takes off after us. We break through the crowd and we see her mom, and oh, the relief I felt. Thank God we were safe. I look back and the man's nowhere to be seen. The whole thing was so weird that sometimes I look back and I'm like, did I imagine that? But I couldn't have imagined the fear I felt when his eyes lit up and he broke into a run behind us. What was he gonna do if he caught up to us? Carry 2 14-year-old girls kicking and screaming out of a public place? Even if he was just trying to scare us, what a fucked up individual. And who needs that many watches?
And I don't wanna be the reason for giving up.
Thor, Rise and Fall, Raging Grace by The Offspring. Every time I hear this album, I am reminded of fond memories of my 15th birthday. We went to Lucky Peak and we listened to this album the whole way there. A couple of pals and I had a great day at the beach, went back home and had a sleepover, and oh man, every time I hear this album, I think about that. It's probably one of my favorite birthdays that I've ever had. This album is in a very special place in my heart from that beautiful day with all my gal pals.
You're my sugar plum. You're awful. I love you.
Another great album that brings back really good memories from my youth is You're Awful, I Love You by Ludo. Betsy showed me this band. She and I would listen to them while we were getting ready to go places, just hanging out at her house. I hear them and I'm definitely reminded of Betsy. Not because she's awful and I love her. She's wonderful and I love her. Definitely this album though, a soundtrack to her and I hanging out, and good times, man.
Come here closer, don't be shy.
Femme Fatale by the wonderful Miss Britney Spears. Some really good memories of this album. I specifically remember some friends and I were going to a community LGBT event. Of course, Britney was playing. We were having a dance party in the car, because why not? And we pull up to another car that is also blasting music. In fact, if I remember correctly, it was Madonna. We blasted our radio, they turned up theirs too, and we had a dance party with the car next to us at a stoplight. Here's the best part. We get to our destination, they were also going to the LGBT community event. What a small world, right?
You carry romance in the palm of your hand. You hold the place for us.
Number 7, Heartthrob by Tegan and Sara. Here's how dedicated I was to acquiring this album. I was going to school in Moscow, Idaho, known for its ice and its snow. I might as well have been going to school in Winterfell. I bundled up on the day the album released, and I set out on a 45-minute trek to Hastings to buy the CD. Do you remember CDs? Those little spinny discs that went into their plastic prisons and cluttered your house? Remember Hastings? The whole world is changing, man. I feel old. So I set out to buy the CD rather than digitally downloading it, which was quickly becoming the number one thing to do. I packed up my laptop and trudged through the ice, slipping and sliding the whole damn way. I got caught in an avalanche. I had to dig myself out through 5 million pounds of snow, and then I had to fight a polar bear. I did not die. I made it to Hastings through that ice and snow. I sat down, opened my laptop, put the CD in, uploaded the CD, and then uploaded it to my Zune. And you heard me right, I said my Zune. And then I walked back through the ice and snow, fighting even more polar bears, listening to the brand new Tegan and Sara album the whole way. Do you know how I go about getting an album nowadays? I press a couple buttons on my iPod, and the music appears. No need to trudge through the elements. Much easier, would recommend. Number 8, Plastic Beach by the Gorillaz. The first time I ever heard this album was also the first time that I took acid. Don't do acid, kids. It's always gonna be dirty. You're never gonna know what's in it. If you're gonna do psychedelics, do mushrooms and have a life-changing experience. Listening to this album, I was having a beautiful moment. I laid back and listened to this beautiful album for the first time. I could feel the sun on my face. I could feel the sand between my toes. We listened to this album until 4 a.m., at which point we walked to the local Jack in the Box and finished our psychedelic trip with a good helping of grease. Number 9 is the Electric Warlock Acid Witch Satanic Orgy Celebration Dispenser by Rob Zombie. Yeah, you heard me. I said the Electric Warlock Acid Witch Satanic Orgy Celebration Dispenser. I've always had a proclivity for the weird, and this is definitely one of the weirder albums I have ever heard, including such great tracks as A Hearse That Overturns with the Coffin Bursting Open. I have a good memory of going to a show with them with my brother. It's where I got this shirt. On the bottom it proclaims, "Get high," and on the back it says, "I'm wicked, I'm hideous, I'm morbid, don't fuck with this." Not a whole lot into metal these days, but definitely Rob Zombie comes on and it feels like it's Halloween, my favorite damn holiday. 10. Tales from the Punch Bowl by Primus. If you don't know Primus, they are the ones that do the South Park theme song, and the song John the Fisherman made popular by Guitar Hero. I'm gonna tell you right now, if somebody tells you that they are a fan of Primus, 20 times out of 10, they are fucked up in the head, and that is a fact proven by science, probably. When someone says they like Primus, it is just as much of a tell-all as somebody saying that they like the band Fish. There are no casual listeners. There are only the obsessed. The soundtrack was essentially the album to the rock bottom of rock bottom in my life. I was drinking a lot, and I was listening to Primus. To this day, honestly, I really can't stand them, but, you know, this album was important because it was the soundtrack right before I started turning my life around. Album 11, Revolution Radio by my favorites ever, Green Day. They out McFricking did themselves on this one. Fueled by the political turmoil of 2016, this was their most politically charged album since American Idiot. This is actually this tour that I finally saw my heroes live. I flew out to Portland all by myself. I had never been on a plane before, stayed with some friends, and had barely any money to my name. I was living in Ketchum, Idaho at the time, where the city bus is free. And because the neighboring town of Haley, Idaho was so close, I assumed that the bus would be free there as well. That was not the case. So when I left the Haley airport, I had no way of getting home, and it was a 4-hour walk. I called up the man who would later be my fiance, and he was at work, and he was like, I thought you had a way home. And I was like, I thought I did too. He told me, you should call so-and-so. I'll lend so-and-so my car, and they can come get you. I didn't want to call so-and-so because I was at a point in my life where I swung at every baseball, and so-and-so had recently turned me down for a date. Rather than face the embarrassment of calling this individual, I decided to hitchhike. It was the hottest day of the year. It was hot as fuck. It was hot as fuck. So I start walking, my thumb out, in hopes that somebody will stop and pick me up without murdering me. Made it to the local McDonald's. I went inside and I said, hey, is anybody going to Ketchum that can give me a ride? Everybody just stared at me. I was walking and I was walking and I was walking and nobody was picking me up. And you want to know why nobody was picking me up? Because I was wearing a Primus shirt. Don't pick up a hitchhiker wearing a Primus shirt because they are probably a murderer. I was starting to run out of businesses to fill my water bottle up. It made it 2 hours. 2 hours in the hot sun out of the 4 hours it would take to get home, and I was approaching the highway. There was going to be no businesses with water. I was just going to have highway between me and Ketchum. And I was starting to think I was going to die of thirst. Finally, some guy pulls over and picks me up. He wasn't a murderer. He was just a good Samaritan that didn't want to see a young girl dragging herself along the highway. So yeah, that was kind of shitty and probably very dangerous of me to decide to hitchhike. But now I have experienced hitchhiking like many of the great writers, in example, David Sedaris.
The past can't haunt me if I don't let it live and burn and never forget it.
My 12th and final album is one that is particularly dear to my heart, and that is Rainbow by Kesha. This was her first album of not being controlled by a real motherfucker. She was no longer singing about getting wasted and partying. It was all beautiful stuff about the transition and the metamorphosis that she herself saw, and it was something I could really relate to. I had just moved out of Idaho and found myself in Grandview, Missouri, and I was thinking to myself, what the fuck am I doing in Grandview, Missouri? I was still struggling with depression, trying to pull myself out of this black pit I had found myself in for so damn long. I was sculpting a better existence for myself, but I still needed to fill in all the cracks. I listened to this album while I was falling back in love with being alive and learning how to be the best Shelby that I can be. You can learn to let it go. The past can't haunt you if you don't let it. Okay, well, those are my 12 albums that are particularly special to me. I hope you were digging it, and I hope that you check out some of them because they are amazing. We'll see you later, alligator.